We got our scrimmage today. Really excited about that. You know, we always love to be able to simulate some of the game type stuff, so you get a chance to see us go out there, you know, go through a couple of, you know, ones versus twos, ones versus ones, you know, incorporate special teams, how they actually happen in the game, you know, get out there one shot at a time, back off to the sideline, be able to move. You know, actually, I think we got the benches out there. We kind of moved it over to the big field this year. We got the fans here, but, you know, like provide the benches so you can go down, feel it was like to sit down, simulate going into a halftime into our locker room and coming back out, to be able to come back out and get it back going, right? That's the transition that happens that when you start these games. So we want to start it for ourselves and be able to get the significant amount of work that we want to get for some guys. And then we'll get less for a couple others, obviously, because we got a heavy workload day coming up on Friday as well. So that's where we're at right now, and that's what's going to happen today. So I thought I'll start off by just kind of explaining that.
Raheem, can I ask you a little bit about some of the injuries? We haven't seen Storm Norton.
Storm Norton is dealing with a lower body injury. I'm not lying. I don't even know exactly what it is. I know he's dealing with a lower body injury, and he's managing it. It's something that we know about, something that we dealt with in the past. We feel really good about it, and then he won't be out there in any action right now, just kind of managing him back. Nothing significant, but something definitely that we got to manage.
We know that Walker and Watts will kind of like on that modification.
Walker and
Xavier Watts.
I believe, you know, Walker will be full today. You know, yesterday we kind of pulled him back a little bit to get ready for today. You know, when you come back from those hamstrings, it's like the back-to-back days are the things that kind of get you. So we're trying to avoid those things. So we'll have those guys out there. You know, obviously Walker's a guy that gets a significant amount of work today in our scrimmage. He'll get some within the game setting and then see what we can do there. And then obviously Watts will be kind of on the same pattern. He's a little further ahead than, say, Walker. His was a little less of a grade, whatever the case is. I don't want to sound like a doctor up here. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, but he'll be less of that way, but he'll be out there. You get a chance to see him as well.
Do you see those guys playing on Friday?
Yes, they'll be out there playing. They'll give you some reps. I don't want to give an exact number, but you give them some number of reps out there playing. You know, you talk about your rookie class, talking about getting them out there. You know, even Mike last year, we got out there just for a little bit, just to get used to what it feels like and some of those things. They've gotten 3 or 4 series. I forget exactly what it was. Don't hold me to that. But we'll get those guys out there for a couple of series and get them a feel for it.
JD had the yellow penny on yesterday.
JD was non-contact. Obviously, you know, he'll be down for this practice and the game. A contact issue, obviously, we'll get into that stuff, being extra, you know, cautious of his history and some of the things that he's had happen to him in the past. So, but expect to see him back shortly.
Got one more for you. It's a bit of a deep cut. Haven't seen Keith Taylor in a while.
Keith Taylor had the hamstring. You know, he had it a couple weeks ago. You guys just don't ask about him. That's kind of your fault.
It is completely our fault. Sorry,
Josh, he's definitely blaming me for something that I didn't do. He just didn't ask about Keith. But Keith had the hamstring. It was a significant one. It was a big one, and he's been out for a couple days or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
It was the long ball that Ray caught down the sideline. Then he made the great play, ran down there, kind of punched it out late. He got hurt in that play.
That was pretty early.
That was, I forget, these days, this is Groundhog's Day for me.
Sure.
But it was, I remember the play. I can't remember the day.
I think that's anybody else that worked for
you know, it's when you don't have to do this, I don't come down ready to talk about that unless you ask, and then just be honest, open and honest with you guys. But like, I don't really have anything else to report.
Jake and Caleb weren't out there yesterday. I assume
that was their normal management day. Yeah. You know, normally you don't see it because it's usually done on that day we have the jog through. Yeah. Yesterday, because we're going 3 days in a row, don't want those old dudes going 3 days in a row. So we kind of gave them off yesterday. They'll be out there full today.
Will you do any extra evaluation with J.D. Bertrand? Does this kick off any sort of new process?
That is a fair question. That is a question I don't have the answer to right now, Josh. You know, I definitely think you got to proceed with caution. You got to definitely do your evaluation. You definitely got to get a feel for it. Take your time, especially now when it's not dire. So those will be all things that we'll have answers for soon. And I'm not qualified really to answer, but definitely there'll be some extra evaluation with all those things.
Raheem, seen guys like Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman both get some reps out there with the ones. What has impressed you a lot with those two specifically back there in the second?
I'm going to speak for Terry right here. Nothing, man. That's what I evaluated. No, I'm just kidding. Terry Fontenot and that staff did a great job of bringing guys in who we expect to be able to help us play early and often. And how early and how often, they're deciding that right now. And they're doing such a great job going out there in practice and absolutely competing every day. You've seen both of those guys get first-team reps. You've seen them both get second-team reps. You've seen them get third-team reps. It doesn't matter, right? And they've been able to go out there and give us some real competitive edges and some competitive things to watch out and evaluate in practice. You know, Jordan Fuller and Watts and DeMarco Helms going at it for that second safety spot. You know, D. Alford and Billy Bowman coming at it for that nickel spot, right? You had Clark Phillips in there just a little bit to do some things so we can get some highly competitive eyes so you can play the best people. And I think that's all helped us a lot. And where we're going to go, and when we get to these games, get a chance to go play.
Is there anything specifically with those two that, you know, maybe differentiates them from the average rookie, you know, to where you're like, okay, like I trust these guys to get some first team reps right now, being so early in training?
There definitely is. There's the factor that they, you know, nothing's really funny to those guys. They're real serious, demeanor guys. You know, obviously Billy had that Mamba tag that we talk about, checking all those boxes. And the other guys, the ball skills, the elite ball skills that they both brought from college football, the awareness, the high-level processes that they are. They bring all those things to our game, and those are definitely, you know, qualities that rookies have to develop, and they've already developed some of that stuff from the schools that they come from. You know, their programs they come from, with, you know, out there with Freeman and Notre Dame, they do such a great job of, you know, really focusing on defense and giving those guys some obstacles. And obviously out in Oklahoma, they're doing the same thing with Venables and some of the stuff that they do. You know, Venables was calling it from the sideline, signaling out there, you know, at a very high level as those guys are attacking the ball, and he's found a way to get that stuff going and rolling. And it's really fun to watch. They were really fun to watch in college, and what they brought to us, a lot of similarity things here.
The guys that are not going on Friday, how much are you taking from what you're seeing today during this scrimmage?
Huge. This is their day. You know, I hate to cut you off, but like this is their day, right? So the guys that you plan on not going, right? You're planning on not going because of what you're going to do today, right? You're planning on giving them the high-level work, the looks. So if you talk, let's just talk about Michael Penix, for example. You know, Michael Penix is going to go out there and he's going to get all the high-level looks, all the protection looks, all the things you can get from a progression standpoint, all the things you can get from a game standpoint, except not getting hit, right? And like I don't want to practice that with him, right? Those are the things I don't need to practice because of the games we got last year, right? That you feel really good about him going in the game, what a pocket presence feels like, what he feels like in the pocket, what he feels like after getting hit, what he feels like coming off the sideline, what he feels like, how calm he is, all those things you've already got an evaluation on. I can give him as much as I can give him out here on practice field without getting him hit, you know, and that's kind of how you feel about it all. Like you can kind of take that example and just turn it to everybody that's not going to play, and that's how you feel about it, and that's how you determine who plays and who doesn't.
Where do you kind of find that line of like trying to make it feel as real as possible with, like you said, it's still controlling the controllable aspects of the factors still on your own?
I don't think it's a line, you know, really. You know, really it's just the tackling is the finish. You know, I was actually talking to another coach the other day. It's actually harder to tackle in practice when you're doing pro thud than it is in the game, right? And it teaches you something different, you know, like you take that extra step to get the pro thud, right? You have to take the extra step. Whether you're DB, you know, we some of us, no, maybe not. Some of in this room has played DB before, like, you know, but you go and make that approach and you go into a bigger guy, it becomes easily a wrap and roll tackle, right? Because those things happen easy. But when you got to really focus and lock in and take that extra step to get that pro thud done, that teaches you to take that extra step. And that's some of the stuff that you can really gain from days like today without having those moments. And I think everybody going through the pro thud phase and everybody getting into the tackling phase, now when you say take that extra step, it actually means something. And I think all those things are really helpful for us.
What have you seen from mine so far to this point in camp? I mean, Caden said he was the avatar. That's basically. He
is absolutely an avatar. That's a great way of describing him. Brick describes him as that guy outside of the car dealerships that's really long, that just blows. He has significant range. He plays with great length. His vision and key and diagnose in the box has looked absolutely outstanding in practice. We've been able to watch him in coverage. He does it easy. He moves easily. He is a elite mover. No shock there, obviously coming from the safety background. But putting him up in the box, being able to do some of those things where he's shown me some things is his ability to be able to pressure the passer, whether you're talking about one-on-ones with the back or being able to get on and off blocks from linemen. Those are some of the things that have really shown up in our practices. You know, like when you call a blitz or you call something on some of these deals, you know, those things don't actually have run fits. But to watch him be able to get hands-on and shed, you know, real significant guards or real significant centers, whatever the case may be, that's impressive. And he's been really impressive what he's been able to do, both in the run game and in coverage.
Staying on the linebacker position,
yes.
How's Troy Anderson coming along?
Troy's doing well. You know, obviously Troy's on PUP. You know, I don't want to say he's ahead of schedule, but he's on schedule, you know, and we feel really good about him. He's feeling really good about himself. I see him every single day. He's locked and loaded, and can't wait for him to get back.
Raheem, actually, there was one more injury that I forgot about.
Sure.
We saw a guy a couple days ago take a pretty good spill out there.
Clearly OPI. and there was no
That's all I was going with.
there was no injury. That was significant high level pop up game.
Okay.
The only thing I forgot to do is give the DB slash and strap. Incomplete pass. If you go look at the videotape, let's ignore the release and the push off. That was unnecessary. You guys missed the walkthrough yesterday. I locked him down. Drake did not have a catch in walkthrough. Complete elimination. You can ask him. Although we don't throw the ball, he didn't have a catch.
Anything else?
Are you ever surprised that Jake Matthews
Every day.
to stay? Well, that he's managed to stay so anonymous, doing this for 10 years at a pretty high level.
Josh, every day. You know, we at the end of the year, you evaluate your roster and you talk about those things. You go to your performance people. You talk about your nutritionists. You talk with it with the ownership. You talk about it with, obviously Terry and that whole team. And it's amazing to see the health, the shape, how well he played, the evaluation from the coaches, the evaluations from the scouts. They all match, and you go through it. And then you talk about every year, it's like, like how much longer you want to get with this guy? And it's like amazing because you just feel like he just remains the same. And I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be with him from 2015, in all those years from 2015 to 2020. And then you come back and I feel like he's healthier than he was. And it's like, it's a credit to him, it's a credit to his development, it's a credit to, you really got to give credit to his family, right? Because this game takes a toll on all of us. And to watch him to be able to go and to thrive in it and to remain anonymous and to keep you guys off his back every year is absolutely outstanding.
Is that intentional on his part?
Has to be. You don't do anything with that great without great intentionality, and he has it.
It was I think it was a couple of days ago. I love asking about the little scuffle.
Tussles.
Yeah, James Pierce Jr. and I think it was Tyrone Wheatley.
Sure.
For a little bit. And
I knew you.
were right.
You knew he knew the name. Let's not act like he didn't know.
Tyrone Wheatley, yeah, of course, Junior. You were kind of in the middle there.
Sure.
What did you see and what was that all about?
Got a little too rough for him in a helmet practice. Those two going at each other, that's nothing new. It was a get off. It was the get off on both sides of the ball. It was a respect thing. And then when you see that happening, like for me, it's easy to get in front of those guys, catch eye contact, tell them to stop. And the only thing I can really grade those guys on is how well they listen in those moments. And when you're able to get to the eye contacts and watch them listen and go back to doing what they're supposed to do, that's what I really grade those guys on, what I love about it. I hate the fighting. I dislike it completely. But like we say, man, things happen, but you got to be able to control those things very quickly. It helps me with the emotional intelligence of a player, and it helps us with our team's development and how we want to go. James is a very smart football player. Didn't have any personal fouls in college. He's one of those guys that, you got to know every time Mark writes an article that every other team's looking at too, trying to antagonize you. So when these teams going to come in and try to antagonize you, how cool and calm you remain as you continue to play and play at a very high level is very important to us.
Are you excited to see him against another team, James Pierce Jr.?
I'm excited to see James every single day in practice. I'm excited to see him against another team. I'm excited to see everybody, all of our guys. It's not just James. It's really all of our guys that go out there and play football. Jalen Walker, James, Watts, all of these young guys who you get some significant looks at. Rook, Dorless, all these guys, they'll get a significant look to see these guys against other people, because it does get a little tiring. I get tired of arguing with Taryn every day upstairs, right? It's like, let's get somebody else to argue with, man. Give me some new reporters to fight with. It is what it is.
You may have already
I get a phone call every day in you guys' press conference.
We've been talking to some players about kind of who they look to in the huddle, when you need that energy, that the guy that kind of livens everything up in that respect. And Bijan yesterday was talking about on offense, that guy is Matthew Bergeron.
He's always that guy.
Who's a guy who probably not a lot of people talk about because he's a guard or whatnot, but what are your takeaways from Berge?
Very similar traits to James, where is always on the edge of emotional intelligence and emotional control. They play the game the right way. That's why you love both of them. They're angry. They got great intent. They got a great belief in what we do, and they want to go out there and absolutely execute it at a very high level. Burge just kind of got like that DB mentality, a little bit kind of an outlier in that O-line room, like we just talked about Jake being a guy that can disappear. Not Burge, right? It's just one of those deals where he's going to kind of, have that receiver DB mentality to talk a little bit and show a little bit and do some real positive things. And those are the things you love about Burge, man, the edge he brings.
You may have already clarified this, but I just wanted to double check. When you say Troy Anderson is on schedule, do you mean for the season itself, or what is that?
No, just in what he's been able to do to pup. We'll see where that goes. I don't know exactly what that entails. Obviously, when you're on the pup, we activate you when we activate you. So we'll get a feel for, what that feels like just from a medical standpoint and where he's at in his rehab and things of that nature is the scheduling I'm talking about. Not necessarily doing with the season because I want to get Troy back when he's at full health and ready to go as opposed to trying to rush a guy back for the season. So it could be for the season and it could not be, but he's on when I say that, I mean, he hasn't had a setback in what he's doing in his current rehab and things to get back for us.
Okay.
Time for one more.
This is our last time talking to you before Friday.
Is it really? Good.
Going into Friday, how different does it feel this time around going to your first preseason game versus last year when you're first year head coach here?
No, it was a big significant difference. I didn't know a lot of the team, and I kind of figured out a couple of us as we were in training camp. But at the same time, you still want to see guys in game action. You still want to see guys put their helmets on. And there were some guys you were not willing to take that risk with because you haven't been through that season with them. Right now, I've been through a season with all of these guys that I feel really good about sitting, right, or most of them. And I got a lot less questions in my head going into the season with these guys. So, I feel great about going into this preseason game. I felt good last year, but I feel great in this year. And it's because of the direction. It's because of the absolute intentionality from our front office to go get what we needed. It's from the intentionality of our coaches coming here to coach what we need and what we want to see. And I feel good about, our organization and where we're at as far as getting ready to attack this season and get ready to go play. So, I feel great about all those things.
All right, thanks, Al.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks, Coach.